Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a scheme that most Western or the globalist controlled countries schemes that they've put forward and they've press released with much fanfare, which is we're going to attract the best and the brightest. Every doctor and engineer, every rocket scientist, everybody with a 5 million IQ is going to come to our country because we're going to offer them such a sweet deal. The geniuses will flock to us. Now, this is really where they offer instant citizenship, and Australia is no different, by the way. And they've run a scheme in Britain, and I think there's one in Canada as well, and New Zealand, I'm aware of, where they say, look, if you invest $5 million in the local economy, in the Australian economy, if you invest $5 million, then we'll give you instant citizenship. You hand over the cash, the citizenship is yours. And this supposedly is to attract the best and brightest business, entrepreneurial geniuses from around the world. Now, it was doomed to failure, and I'll come back in a minute and talk why. But that was and it's so naive that you think it must have been invented by someone in first year high school or something like that. Someone who's never worked, who has no concept of how money is made. So it must have been a bureaucrat's decision. But on the face of it, so how can we attract the best and brightest minds in the world, and how can we make it attractive for them? Yeah, so I understand the sort of the beginning process of the thoughts, but the execution and the practical planning and the outcome management, the whole thing is just so ridiculous and absurd that it's fucking laughable. But anyway, this is what it was: $5 million, instant citizenship, and we'll attract the best and the brightest. Now, the scheme's just been recently in Australia, and they're talking about it elsewhere. The scheme has either been modified or stopped altogether, or variations of it have been applied, are supposedly going to tighten up the loopholes. I think that the money launderers and criminals will still get around it, so I don't think it's going to really stop much at all. But if you look at the amount of people, certainly on what I've seen reported, and this is my understanding anyway, is of the people, the many people that tens of thousands that took up the offer to Australia to invest the $5 million. Firstly, did they invest in a business, or did they just buy a property for $5 million? Just go and buy a house for $5 million with money that came from overseas that is quite obviously money being laundered. And where did that money come from? How did they earn that money? So there's no controls or checks or anything over that. So $5 million comes in, buys a house which they can sell the next day or a year later or whenever, and they've now got $5 million all clean, fully laundered, washed through, and they're good to go. And some of these people weren't just buying one $5 million property. They were once they had the citizenship, they were buying swathes of fucking property. So they were laundering, not just millions, but tens of millions or even hundreds of millions. So this idea that it was attracting the best and the brightest or something was ludicrous. It was just criminal gangs. Now, certainly based on the numbers I've seen, and it varies year to year, but between 85 and 90% were Chinese. Again, how are these people making their money? If you're going to make money in China, you have to be connected to the ruling party, and they allocate out monopolies and cartels, but primarily monopolies to their friends and to the party goons and hacks and stooges. And you can get a monopoly on selling all the whiskey in Shanghai, for example. All the whiskey in Shanghai, which means rivers of money just come rolling in your front door. And what do you do with that money? One day you're going to fall foul of the party machinery, and they're going to turn on you and accuse you of something or other. So you need a lot of bolt holes. You need to set your family up, your relatives and cousins and whatever. They have to have nice houses to live in. And in Asia, if you work for, you have to be self-employed. You have to have a business, because that shows that you're your own man and you're in control and this sort of thing. So it's very much part of culture to see the world that way. So these, between 85 and 90% of the people that came were just, the Communist Party generals, the proverbial Communist Party generals coming in laundering their fucking money. Now, then you get a percentage of the Indian, the Indian Brahmins, again, the same thing. You're well connected to government. They're the elite, and they've got their monopolies and their cartels, and they're horribly corrupt, both the countries. So again, they're concerned with laundering money, setting up bolt holes. They're not sort of creating businesses or anything like that. I mean, maybe you can find one of them somewhere that does, but gee whiz, you'd be hard pressed. Then you get a few drug lords from Asia, from Cambodia and so on, that are laundering their money. But you'd be really hard pressed to find a single entrepreneur or business person or someone that wasn't just out to launder money or set up a business that they then use as a scam to bring over more of their peasant sort of countrymen to work in the business. And the business could be flipping burgers, it could be anything, but they're not starting up a business and adding value and paying taxes and doing the sort of things that white people have to do or the citizenry have to do. So the whole thing's turned into a debacle that is really just laundering and washing the ill-gained illicit wealth. But even if the money isn't stolen or isn't criminal or criminally derived, the money they bring in is money that comes from oligopolies and through corrupt practices and monopolies and sweetheart deals. None of these people are business. Well, I'm sure you'll find one somewhere, but none of these people have made their money, as in they've started a business, they've invented something, they've got a great idea, they're giving super service or anything like that. They're all the gains are illicit, and none of them are on the basis of, so they're not attracting the brightest minds. Now let's suppose, and nor do they live here, these places are used to launder money and just as bolt holes. If you've got $5 million cash lying around, wherever you live in the world, you're doing pretty good. You don't need to come to Australia for that. Why the fuck would you come to Australia if you've got that sort of money? $5 million in India makes you a king. Why would you leave that? We can have legions of servants doing your every bidding, and you can back out instructions and feel important and powerful all the time, that sort of thing, which these Brahmins do. They come to Australia and they're outraged that the people don't show them the same respect as the flunky servants do in India. But this whole idea was flawed conceptually from the outset. If you want to get entrepreneurial people or scientists or geniuses or the rocket scientists and the top of the town engineers, you don't find them in the third world. They're not there anyway. And the ones that are there aren't rich. They're aspirational middle class people. And that they won't have the sort of money. And if they're in their own country, they're doing all right. So unless you offer them something you give them a package of things that jump them up the queue. So it's okay, well, you come here, and just because you're a third world country, or black or brown, we'll give you this, and this, and this. That's hardly attracting entrepreneurial talent. That just attracts freeloaders or people who want a free ride. So really, the whole thing is flawed from the outset. The only way that you're going to get an entrepreneurial class, and again, these idiot fucking politicians and public servants, they think you can just push a button and entrepreneurs just roll out of the machine. It doesn't happen though. That's how they perceive the world. Being bureaucrats, they see that you push a button and it just happens. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. And the idea that there are all these oppressed, held back geniuses in the third world who just happen to be illiterate peasants living in mud huts, but they're about to become rocket scientists. I mean, that's insane to even think along those lines. So the only way you're going to attract the sort of people that can add value to your economy is to have higher standards of entry. You have to speak English. Maybe you offer free English classes and say, okay, well, there's an English college we're going to set up. You can attend for free, and if you pass a rigorous exam on speaking English and all these sorts of things that indicate you want to integrate, the effort the effort you put into it, then we can give you a visa. Maybe first off it'll be a 3-year work visa. If that goes okay, then you've got a pathway to citizenship, but you must meet a standard of education, and we will rigorously test you. That's the way to do it. And you look at the other than when they were clearing out the refugee camps in post World War II Europe, where there was a more random sort of effect there. But if you look at the sort of the immigrants that were coming to Australia in the 1960s as an example, there's quite a few. You look at like I'm looking at the manifest of one ship of migrants coming from Europe to Australia, and you look at the occupations: builder, bricklayer, concreter, architect, nurse, carpenter, plumber, electrician, and so on. Pretty much everyone's got a qualification. Not every single person's got one, but pretty much everyone's got a useful qualification. Carpenters are in big demand. Architects, builders, bricklayers. But all these people, nurses, all these people are in big demand and could walk straight into employment. They could get off the ship and pretty much walk straight into a job. The average time between when someone, this is someone who's not sponsored, by the way, they're just walking off the ship. The average time between somebody arriving and getting a job, an adult, was 3 weeks. 3 weeks, for Christ's sakes. And you had to have enough money to last at least a certain amount of time. But these people were getting jobs, pretty much, and in their profession, the bricklayer was getting a job as a bricklayer, and carpenter as a carpenter, nurse as a nurse, and so on. So you look at the difference today. These illiterate third world peasants come in. They can't speak the language. They're illiterate in their own language. They've never had a job in their lives. They've come straight from the mud hut. From the middle of fucking nowhere, and this sort of the difference in the quality. So if you want to get the best and the brightest, or people that will at least make a positive contribution, then you simply raise the standards. And all that's happening right across the Western world now, at the behest of the globalists, by the way, is to lower the standards, lower them again, lower them some more, and then lower them after that. It's a recipe for disaster. You may task us today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.